What's up, y'all? I just wanted to provide my point of view of how Harris' blowout victory scenario could actually go in the 2024 presidential elections. And I'll get right into it right now. So, there are four components that I use, and these are ad spend on Meta platforms that includes Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. I also use polls, of course, and I also use betting markets, and finally Google Trends, which is something nobody uses, but it's actually a very accurate and well backtested indicator of this, of generally the elections, presidential level and state level as well, and that's why I'm also using Google Trends. A few search terms that I have in my reserve. Basically, what we've already filled in the map, the basics that we could just fill in right on. So these are basically the safe states, not the solid states, but safe states for each of them. Now let's get into what could be a blowout scenario for Harris and how serious it could be, how serious of a victory it could be, and it would take a lot. But if you guys have a look at what happened in just uh, recently, you can see that the Trump's odds dropped to 55%, which was a pretty big swing, but it looks like the market just recovered immediately, which is definitely was not fair because that interview got better, but it was not that much better, and we also saw how fragile those odds are. Now, if you have a look at what we could see, so basically, if you have a look at where Kamala made actual progress, it is Texas, Florida, basically converted 2 3 points in Florida, and also quite a lot in Texas. And you guys know that on Reddit as well. There's a serious movement, a liberal movement, and in Texas subreddit, and generally Texas has a lot of had a lot of influx of people moving in, of course, in a positive way. A lot of people moving in from California, leaving California and moving to Texas, and that has had effect on the voter turnout and also the overall alignment. And you can see that Texas, I would have to say that Texas is probably gonna go just 5 to 7 points at most in favor of Republicans, but in a blowout scenario, we see 2 3 points to shift to Kamala Harris, and that will not change anything anyway. So we will attribute just a very close margin to her in a blowout scenario. Now, if you have a look at Florida, it's completely different. I think that Florida is now right now 3 to 5 points in favor of the Republicans, and even though the overall general broader movement is stronger in Texas, you can see that Florida has been shifting to the left. It's really hard to say that Florida is going to go blue. Right now, it's definitely not going to, but in just 3 weeks, maybe, well, not even 3 weeks, just 17 days, I don't know if she will be able to come up with something really creative, but something tells me that they could try a few things that comes to ad spend, campaigns, ground campaigns, maybe one campaign, at least one ground campaign in Florida, maybe trying to completely change the direction of these elections. Maybe they will deem it as not safe, but I will mark it as a swing Democrat at least, if not Texas also. Texas is really going to be really, really close, and I think that next cycle it could easily get flipped. Now, if we have a look at Arizona, Arizona can easily go to Kamala, very easily could vote Democrat because right now we have massive urban areas in Arizona that overwhelmingly vote for the Democratic candidate, and generally Arizona is, of course, historically a red state, but I don't think that's going to have effect in this case. I think that Kamala could have a really close win. I don't think it's going to go above 4%. I am not in any fathomable way that's a blowout victory. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to have it as a swing Democrat state. Of course, Nevada could also go Democrat. If it's a general increase in ad spend, then Nevada could be easily targeted in that specific strategy. Inside that specific strategy, I could easily see that happening. Therefore, I will mark Nevada. I don't think it's going to go about 4%, so I'm going to also mark Nevada as a standard swing victory. Now, if you have a look at Iowa, I think Iowa has been a bit Democratic leaning. You can see the Capitol Des Moines has been moving to the left quite a lot, but I don't think that overall we're going to see Iowa turn Democrat yet. But in a blowout scenario, I could definitely see that happening with that really, really thin margin. This kind of changes the direction that we're going, like a realistic blowout victory, a realistic one. But I mean, there are definitely odds that Iowa could turn blue. I would say about 10 to 15% odds that it could this election cycle, and the next election cycle I would say about 30%, unless Republicans come up with a certain campaign and actually focus on Iowa. They completely ignored it before Mitt Romney and after that as well, and it just naturally turned red. Otherwise, you have no ad spend in Iowa, no concentrated ground campaigns in Iowa, basically none, right? And therefore, I think that there is a chance that it could go by a really, really small, close, a small margin, really close race. I think that it could go to Kamala Harris. Now, when it comes to Ohio, there's absolutely no chance that Ohio could go Democrat at this time. I don't think that the margin of victory is going to be any lower than 4%. I think that Ohio has been moving to the right way more than let's say Iowa has been moving to the left. So even that much of an experience has been visible for the citizens of Ohio. You can clearly see that it's definitely moving right, which is completely different from Iowa, which this election cycle at least has been going and moving steadfastly to the left. So we'll mark Ohio actually I could mark it as a lean margin, not likely margin, but let's just mark it as a lean margin. I think that's fair to say. So at anything 5 to 7 points, that's what I'm expecting in Ohio. Now, if you have a look at Pennsylvania right now realistically goes to Harris. There's absolutely no argument that it's basically a toss-up, but if we really had to say which way it's really going to go, I would probably say that it's probably going to take a turn really soon because of the general diversity of the voters. I can definitely see that. We also saw something that has been overlooked quite a lot, which is that Kamala was able to secure a firewall of almost 290,000 voters. So basically the voter registration showed about 200,000 Republicans and about well, not exactly, but about 490,000 Democrats registering in Pennsylvania. That's definitely going to be really creating a really optimistic scenario, and we'll see how that goes. Of course, we can in a blowout scenario, we could even try something close to a lean margin, not a likely margin. That's definitely not happening, but 1 to 4 points is definitely possible, and I would say even likely if the blowout scenario is to come true. Now, if you have a look at Michigan was supposed to be a lean margin victory, but it did not happen because the polls turned out to be mostly conducted in urban areas, really imprecise polls with different demographics, age groups. That was just really inaccurate and uneven. And now that the new polls have shown that the rural areas in Michigan are extremely red, but of course, we have Detroit and other urban areas predominantly blue, But I think that overall, right now, Michigan is 50-50 in the elections, but I think that it's still going to go to Harris in this sort of case that we're talking about. It would definitely go to Kamala. Not, well, yeah, I would say by a lean margin, that's definitely possible, and we can easily include that in this specific type of scenario. Now, Wisconsin, same way, you have rural areas extremely red. Democrats in rural areas actually are at a much higher ratio, because in Michigan it's mostly concentrated inside Detroit and the surrounding urban areas, right about here, basically here. And that's not true for Wisconsin. Also for Minnesota, basically, there are a lot of Democrats in rural areas as well, but of course more Republicans, right? But yes, Wisconsin is probably going to be lean margin victory for Kamala if she manages to snag some serious advantage in terms of the campaign. Now we can see on the poly market, I don't want to miss this, we can see that, of course, I mean, Trump had that rally to the upside. By the way, just want to say that, yes, poly market is not a singled out case. A lot of the other betting markets, pretty much all of the other major ones, show that Kamala Harris has lost some ground as a matter of fact, certainly did. We have to admit that, whether you are left or right or Democrat or Republican, doesn't matter. But the fact is that Kamala was able to generally secure this entire turnout, as, let's say, Trump is going to moving closer and closer into the election. You can see nothing changes for him, right? He has been stagnating for, well, just about half a week. That's not a lot, but generally as close as you get to the election, it should go up. Naturally, the winner's odds should go up. That's not what we are seeing. So I think that momentum is shifting for Kamala. For Kamala, generally, Kamala is accumulating that momentum right now, and I think that it could just turn around again, as it has happened before, right? Other way around, of course. So that's something I wanted to say. Now again, back to the maps. North Carolina, we know that is probably, in a realistic scenario, Kamala actually has better odds of winning North Carolina than Trump does right now, and also in this kind of a one-sided case that we're trying to basically assign for Kamala, I think that would probably fall into a lean margin. And finally, we have Georgia, which actually turned out to be much more Republican than I thought. And the urban areas don't seem to be, and a lot of cities, including Atlanta, and Atlanta actually does seem to be quite a bit left, but doesn't seem to be changing a lot. I mean, if Detroit is not changing anything, then Atlanta, I just don't see it changing the direction of this election. So I think that Georgia is going to be decided by a substantial margin finally, and I think that Democrats in general in this scenario, I think Democrats could get the state of Georgia by a swing margin. I don't see anything more than that. Maybe lean margin, like there are odds that it could go lean margin. But I would say that right now Trump leads 2 points, maybe 3 points in Georgia, and we'll see that if that happens in a realistic scenario. We have to see if that even happens. So this is the blowout victory map for Kamala Harris. With this, she would single-handedly manage to take out a lot, basically flip a lot of these red states. I did not even focus maybe on Kansas, that the margin of it would maybe drop. I did drop the margin for South Carolina. I think that's going to be below 15 points, and in a blowout scenario, I would say it's probably going to be below 12 points. And everything else, I would say, falls into the category, of course, well, Alaska would probably be likely margin, but maybe lean margin. I mean, I would probably go with lean margin, actually, for Alaska, because there are a lot of women voting for Kamala in Alaska. Biden was not able to do that, and Kamala was able to accumulate a lot of voters in Alaska. If you have a look at Google Trends real quick, we can see that this is for the last 30 days. The past 30 days have shown this is the realistic map right now. Pennsylvania goes to Kamala by a really slight margin. Also Nevada goes to her by a really close, in a really close race. And also you can see that Colorado has been getting compromised a little bit, and we have to admit that as well. But overall, I just don't think that I personally think that, like, if you look at Arizona, how close it is, and then if you have a look at the betting odds on it, let me have a look if I can get the map on it. If you have a look at Arizona, it's 70% lead for Trump. If you guys bet on anything, I would probably advise to not bet on Arizona going Republican, because it's extremely close right now. It's definitely overpriced right now. There's absolutely no chance that Arizona is going to be that much of a margin of victory. Is going to show that much lead for Trump at all. I just don't see it. I mean, you can see that how close it is. It's as close as Pennsylvania is in favor of Democrats, basically, by this, if we just go by this map, right? We can see Michigan and Wisconsin, 53 and 53 for both. That's pretty interesting. And you can also see why based Iowa, if in a blowout scenario, you can see that Harris has been making major progress in Iowa. You can see 51% interest for Fox News. We use Fox News and CNN. This has proven to work last election cycle. I'm betting that it's going to work this election cycle as well. So it's something you could go by if you want some sort of a thesis for your predictions. So that's what I'm looking for, and I'm not gonna make it any lengthier. This is the final prediction of mine in a one-sided scenario favoring Harris. This is what I would be looking for. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video and hope you guys found value in it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and for more of these original ways of calculation, and hope you guys like rest of the videos. Peace.